All right, guys. So this is episode 2 of my podcast, Dragon's Tavern. I'm very excited to have a new guest with me, who is Ben from Cambria, founder of Cambria. And yeah, there's so much hype about the game now coming to Ronin, and I wanted to get to know you a bit better, Ben. And yeah, great to have you here.
Thanks, man. Great to be here.
So
We
first of
should
all,
kick off with our
yeah,
combo from earlier.
true, true.
What have been your three biggest games that you've been obsessed with
Yeah,
in
so
the past?
personally for me, of course, Fortnite. I think we have something in common there, right? Um,
Nice.
but yeah, I also really like the esports side of Counter Strike, and
Yeah.
pooh. Other than that, really hard. Maybe actually, um, hmm, World of Warcraft, I would say.
Yeah.
How about you?
Nice. Nice. Solid. RuneScape, League. Yeah, I played it quite a bit. Age of Empires. Have kind of been consistently playing that for the past 10 years. Obviously as a kid, but Age of Empires too. As a kid, but with recent the HD version as well as the remastered version, there's actually quite a cool scene of people there. A lot of new civilizations, a lot of stuff they're adding. So it's always been fun. It's always a nice, like conquest sort of
Yeah,
game to play.
but so why does the Fortnite meme then always pop up whenever you're mentioned? Like, I feel like it's kind of like almost chasing you around
Yeah,
wherever you go.
some fucker on our Discord just made this up. Like I don't know. Like I barely ever played Fortnite. Maybe played once or twice. Yeah, that's
Ah,
about it.
okay. So
Yeah,
you just like
I
played,
LARP as if I play, but yeah.
uh, so you just played some battle royale modes or some creative maps, or what did you do in Fortnite?
No, no. I think it was just battle royale. I was like watching a friend played a
All
bit,
right,
but
got it.
it's really past my time. Past my time. I'm old.
Yeah,
Fortnite's for the Zoomers out there.
true.
Gen.
That's also why I quit. But yeah, I was actually one of the first professional players in Europe. I
Oh
think back
yeah.
in 2017
Wow.
I started very early on, and yeah, won a
Wow.
bunch of
Wow.
tournaments.
Nice. Nice.
But yeah, going from games to food. What's your favorite food and why is it oysters?
I actually don't really enjoy oysters that much, which kind of pisses me off because yeah, that kind of threw me for a loop over New Year's. It was really bad. I think it was like a stomach flu. Like I just couldn't keep it either. Like I would like throw up water. Yeah, quite not a great experience to start the New Year's, but yeah, I'm back now. So alive, hopefully stronger.
That's good. Um, so uh, what I was wondering, there's like lots of people actually do that in Web3, but what's your main reason for not being doxxed and
Yeah.
keeping things private on that side?
Yeah, I think being pseudonymous, it's just it's easier to manage.
Yeah.
I think with a lot of what we're trying to build, we see tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, kind of being fought over. A lot of kind of security concerns, like operationally, just managing, yeah, just OPSEC, what have you. So yeah, I think we generally as a team are pretty private. But yeah.
Hmm.
I think there's pros and cons to any
Yeah.
sort of approach you go with.
So
And obviously, yeah, not a
yeah. So
yeah.
so there's also no plans of eventually changing that, or you're leaving that
Maybe,
open?
maybe,
Okay.
maybe I'll pull a Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Not as good looking as Pac-Man, but
Uh, and yeah, one more personal question I have. Um, do you have a favorite anime, and why is it Berserk?
yes, obviously from the profile picture, yeah, big fan there. Favorite anime. Um, Man, it's been a while. Like I used to be super into it in high school, but I think it's been a while since I've watched anything. Attack on Titan,
Oh, nice.
definitely great show. Caught up to it recently, so
Yeah. So more on the
that's
savage side, just like
yeah.
your game.
Yeah. That
Uh,
first, in the first season when they kind of first went outside the wall, and then they had the formations and all that military shit. Like
yeah.
I was like, that got me hooked. I was like, dude, this shit fucking awesome.
Yeah, cool.
What about you? Any favorite?
Yeah, I kind of like the same. Actually, I loved Berserk, Attack on
Yeah,
Titan 2. Yeah, I don't watch that many, but I've a few that I really, if I
yeah,
start watching, I need to watch them till the end, and usually I
yeah.
have pretty good
Yeah,
decision making there.
right.
Yeah, so um, I would be interested to know if you can talk about that, your previous experience in other companies or projects that you worked on. Is that maybe something you can share with me?
Yeah. So previously to this, I was doing software engineering at a robotic startup. We were, doing robots that, basically scan industrial equipment. We actually used a lot of, 3D visualization software. So I was doing a lot of, kind of work using 3JS and, some browser-based sort of visual libraries to basically, yeah, model out the path of, some of these robots, kind of display some of the data in a way that was easy for these sometimes more elderly um, repair workers to basically understand the condition of their asset. So yeah, that was fun. Kind of that was actually pretty helpful for building Cambria because 2D browser based game, like very similar technologies. We use Phaser on the front end. So yeah, that was actually a nice little intro there. But yeah,
Yeah.
previously was not in gaming.
Okay, so you have a strong coding background, and that's also something where you take lots of responsibility in Cambria, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also see you writing lots of blog posts. Is that because it's interesting to you, or do you think it's important for the community to get out there? Or yeah, what's your reasoning behind that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with blog posts, usually it's around something that we're launching. So just setting the context around things, kind of going to the history. I think with a lot of these things, yeah, it's kind of like the culmination of a lot of iteration, like either from previous playtests or just entirely new ideas where we're like, hey, like this could be interesting, like to share kind of like how we came to this conclusion or why we're doing XYZ. Because at the end of the day, this Camper is a community project, right? We've been building with the community ever since we started 2 years ago. So yeah, we definitely want to always kind of keep the community in sync. Yeah, I don't think I even do the best job at it. Like it takes some time, right, to
Yeah,
write updates and share updates. So I've been trying to do that more recently as well. But yeah, it's a balance.
yeah, yeah. I think it definitely helps to just having something written out there is like always a good
Oh yeah,
point of information to get back to for everyone,
right.
and people like know what the vision is, know what the ideas are.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
And it builds equity too. It's like, if somebody's
yeah.
coming to the project later, they go to
That's
blog.gambler.gg and they kind of see the
Yeah, that's kind of
you
how
don't
I
have to.
how I got started basically, and that's why I was also interested
Yeah.
because there was like lots of data also on the Notion documents, lots of things to
Right.
fall back
Right.
on, especially like for the nerds, right, that
Yes.
want to get into the devs.
Yes. Dude, that's the part about crypto that I really like reading the docs. I know there's a lot of nerds that kind of obsess over the small details because really it's the small details matter, right? Like
Yeah,
a lot of these older 2021, like a lot of these protocols, like if you picked up on that one thing in the docs that nobody noticed, like you could make a ton of money, especially if you could digest that information like super quick. Like some of these guys were doing like stealth launches, dropping their git books. So yeah, it's really a fun time. The other thing with the blog post that I'm trying to emulate is the RuneScape blog post. Like they used to
oh, okay,
every game update, right? They'd write like a big blog post about all the things that have changed it. And yeah, for like big fans of the game, like that was something to follow and kind of something to look forward to.
yeah. Just a small thing. When sometimes I feel like you're going a bit too far away from the mic, so it drops a bit low on the audio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
if
it's
we
not
can
picking
keep it
up.
in mind.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, about your leadership style in the company, can you maybe give some insights, like how the dynamics are there? What kind of boss is Ben when it comes to the team?
Yeah. Interesting question. Yeah, so we don't have a big team. I'd say 10 or 11 full time. But yeah, fully remote. We kind of are all over the world, across different time zones as well. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is just coordination. So yeah, we do a daily stand up. Usually that's a great way to kind of like get everyone in sync. But yeah, I'd say like team wise, like really really great team. A lot of stack talent. So it's really about like hey, like at certain points like reviewing either art that we have coming down the pipeline, new development. Sometimes I'll kind of like drop into a pull request with new content and kind of tweak some things or revise some things. But otherwise, yeah, it's mostly pretty hands off. I think
Yeah.
like the team is very crypto native. Like we all know kind of what we're building. So
Yeah. So sounds to me like very startup like with a flat hierarchy, right?
yeah, oh for sure.
But good people. That actually also leads to my next question. Like, how do you find the right talent? Like, how do you get from just Ben to 10 or 11 employees that you can trust?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I was lucky because I used to work as a dev as well. So I used to do freelancing as well. For a couple of different networks. So yeah, I'd say like starting the company, I already had a roster of people that I kind of knew to call. But yeah, I mean, otherwise it's really mostly luck. I think luck and just building something cool and having some vision to line around.
Yeah. And you also have some pretty well-known investors with Bitcraft in the scene. What
Yeah.
role did they play for you? Are they also kind of like more strategic investors where they support you with advising and network, or is it like just money and you do your own thing?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So Big Crowd, and the team have been extremely helpful. Like we sometimes hop on calls with kind of just to dive through the priorities. Like it's mostly like prioritization and kind of like roadmap type things. What things like we expect in the next 3 to 6 months to a year. But yeah, they've been very very hands on. So very very lucky to. I think like choosing investors is it's definitely important. I think the wrong ones will definitely drag you down. But
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's actually get more into Cambria itself. So, how did I came in late, so I don't know like the full origin, but how did Cambria first get traction? Like,
yeah,
what kind of put Cambria on the map?
sure. Yeah, so when we first started, we actually the first product that we built was a kind of virtual world for trading NFTs. Funnily enough, it was kind of like a virtual NFT marketplace, like kind of bizarre, like almost like a little farmers market, right? Where you could like we would do events and then you could trade NFTs. Our target market was like more the NFT collector that you had people that cared about the traits that were above floor. I think this was back when KPR existed, when Valhalla. I mean, they were they just minted. So yeah, that was kind of where we started. That's kind of how we built out the initial community. Was just like, hey, do you want to come check this out? Like we're trading a few KPRs here. Come in, kind of hang out. So yeah, I mean, at that point, the game was very rudimentary, right? It was just like just WASD, like and kind of just walking around in this little 2D sort of universe. And obviously with the RuneScape inspiration, like it was we built out this whole like trading. I mean, you still see in game actually the current trading interface pretty much is identical, but yeah, you'd right click on a player, send trade requests, it would open the RuneScape, start trading, right? And it's a real time negotiation, right? It's like you're putting up an offer and then you're removing certain things and you're like editing the quantity, and it's like, and then in RuneScape you would type in chat of like, oh hey, like that's too much, right? Like give me I'll only offer up 100K, and then you would decrease your offer and it would update, which actually led to a lot of scams, right? People were
Yeah.
like stealth remove things, and they added more UI indicators later
Yeah.
to prevent that. That was actually very fun because basically what we did was like we represented your wallet as almost like a game inventory, right? It was like you all your NFTs started out in your bank, all your tokens started out in the bank, and then you can withdraw it into your inventory and then kind of trade it around, right? So we split out the ERC 721s from the 1155s. So it was like the tokens and the NFTs. And then when you hovered over them, similar to like I think the first iteration of the tooltip looked very much like a WoW, like the item hover with the epic rare sort of colors. You had the floor price on there, the collection, the NFT metadata as well that you could kind of see. So when you hovered over the other player's NFT, like you could also see that. But it was really cool because it was like it's almost like hacking attention. It's like you're logging in, you're like, oh, I don't care about Cambria, right? But you log in your inventory, like you see your precious assets, right? That you paid a lot of money for, and then you're like, oh shit, this is cool. Like maybe I'll be immersed in this world.
Do you have some player number metrics from back then? Or
No,
users?
no.
Oh.
I mean, we ran events, right? So usually we'd have
Okay.
like maybe 200 or 300 people come out.
Mm.
But yeah, that was kind of we did a demo there, and because of the RuneScape nostalgia, I think Jonah actually, Jonah.
Ah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, he retweeted us. That was actually the first thing that spiked my attention.
It's funny because last week I had Luke here from Pixels, and they also started kind of in a different space with like a digital workplace, right? So it's funny like how Evolve kind of like started in a similar era, doing like different things and then pivoted.
There were a lot of teams in that space back in the day. There still are. I mean, Gather Town is the big, heavyweight there, but that was quite a fun space.
Okay, so and I think it was this year you guys brought Cambria to Blast. Why did you start with Blast? And can you maybe also give some context there?
Yeah. So we started with base actually. We launched, I think, November of 2022 on base. We launched Dual Arena, the first version. So yeah, that was super fun time. Kind of got the first initial Cambrians, right? The first people in the community there. That's when we had the OG role, kind of all of that. We relaunched on Blast, I think, in March the next year. And for us, like chain wise, at that point it was mostly about like following our users. Like they were initially on Blast, on base because of Friendtech, and then a lot of the liquidity moved to Blast because of the just the incentives and the airdrop farming. So yeah, it was really mostly because of that. I'd say like we were also pretty bullish on Blast as well. Obviously because some of the fee share, the revenue sharing from the sequencer fees, the yield, Blast Gold, like some novel sort of incentive mechanisms there.
So one thing I also noticed is that Cambria is like a very strong degen community, right? So I guess that's also kind of where that comes from.
Yeah.
But also what I noticed about the community is like there's lots of memeing and like all these insider jokes. Where does that come from? Is it something where you would say it's kind of like a mirror to your personality, or
are you
I'd
say
so it's all your fault.
And it's mostly a function of just like the initial people that were there as well. With a lot of degens.
But yeah, I have to say, Cambria community is a very special dynamic. I think if you first come in like the founders chat, you're a bit like, oh, what's going on here? But
pretty much the most active chatters are just continuously 24/7 fighting Cambria in chat every day, which is very fun experience. It's almost like hazing, right? New person buys in, they're like, what the fuck did I get into? I should sell.
Okay, so why did you end up then also going into Ronin? And can you maybe talk a bit about the impact of Ronin, joining Ronin?
Yeah. So yeah, I do have a tweet thread on this from a while back that kind of summarizes it. But yeah, I'd say it's a combination of just player liquidity, right? With the MMO, like you kind of need players at pretty much all ends of the spectrum, like kind of wider player base to farm the materials and kind of like make the economy work, like kind of have the trading posts, right, be active. The thing with kind of these degen sort of focused games is that it's actually quite niche. I think the number of people that are willing to risk, right, like thousands of dollars, right, on a video game, right, is quite niche. But it's kind of like getting these different audiences, right, together in a game where the game kind of supports all of it, right, and it's synergistic in terms of like the speculators are playing off of the grinders, and the grinders are playing off the whales, what have you. Where there's hopefully like we're with this season, with next season, we're building in more loops where it kind of like is reflexive sort of like feedback loop that is positive in terms of growth. But yeah, I mean, like, sorry, what was your original point that you were asking?
Yeah, basically just the kind of the effect for you to also join to Ronin.
Oh,
I guess,
yeah,
yeah,
the
the
effect,
Ronin
yeah.
effect.
So a lot of what attracted us to Ronin was basically all of the interesting MMOs that were launching there. We saw, Lumitera, we saw Runiverse, right? Obviously, Pixels, like the OG, that had, basically the only live economies with crypto games that were
Yeah,
actually running. These guys were, iterating. They were doing playtests. So we're like, hey, like if we want to attract the same player base, like that's exactly our player base, then let's go to where they're at. And that's what I really found surprising about Ronin. I knew there was some of this going in, but just the amount of like people that are really into games, like really into MMOs, like really click with this, have played Axie in the past, like are looking for kind of that similar experiences, right? Yeah, I think like people maybe across crypto Twitter don't often realize that there's a strong base of hardcore MMO players as well as asset owners and otherwise.
yeah, yeah. Just being from within my own bubble, I feel like there's like a super
Yeah.
strong network effect. Where you kind
Yes.
of like almost can't get out. Like once you're in Ronin, you're like there's Ronin everywhere.
That's when Ronin's doing a good job. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because I mean, like, it's like if you play Pixels, like you might be interested in Cambria. If you play Cambria, you might be interested in Runiverse. Like
exactly.
having kind of all of that in the same
Yeah,
ecosystem, especially with the NFTs, right?
yeah. And I can just see it from my own community, right? Like I started in Pixels, and then like I brought them basically to all
Yeah.
these other games.
Right.
And I have to
Right.
say they all love Cambria, so it's
Huh.
pretty fun,
And
and
they,
yeah,
they hear.
very excited for the next
Yeah.
seasons as well. But yeah, just about Ronin as well. You guys were part of the 7 teams that got announced from the Ronin Forge program. Is there any special benefits that you got from that, or were you still working together with the Ronin team, or what can
Yeah, yeah. I think for Forge, almost like Ronin kind of full publishing light, right? It's kind of like mutual evaluation on both sides to see that hey, like, do we work together well, and is this a good
yeah,
fit? Yeah, and I'd say like the experience has been amazing because I think like with Forge, like we got a ton of support. We both ecosystem side, like advice, like we have a shared Slack channel where I can ask questions about, let's say, the Ronin creator program and some successes there, kind of bouncing some
yeah,
ideas off. It's just been great, because they've done it before, right? They've seen how these games work, so they have a ton of experience going into things. So yeah, it's a very, very good experience.
So it's a lot about like the exposure and Ronin kind of acting as a publisher or curator for the community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And one maybe something a bit critical thing that people say about Ronin is that lots of extractors. Is that something that's maybe worrying for you or your community or your
yeah.
game? Or
I
what's your
don't know.
thoughts on this?
I don't know. I think people say this, but there's, I mean, the thing with Web3 is like most people are extractors, right? So I don't know if it's specific to Ronin or pretty much every other chain. Like I feel like
Yeah,
Ronin, like people who actually do play the games, and like since the game is an actual product that's not just pure financial speculation, I think there's more people that actually care about maybe
yeah.
even spending,
I
right?
also think I also think the same about whales. I also don't think there's many whales that like to just lose money,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So
exactly.
they're just
Nobody
playing
likes.
the game on a different scale, mostly. But yeah,
Right.
lots of small fish also
Yes.
make you.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you have some thoughts on general games being multi-chain? Do you think that's the way to
Mm.
go? Are you open for more chains
Yeah.
or?
Yeah. It's tricky. I think. With the current landscape of L2s, like there's just kind of no slam dunk easy solution, right? Where it's like, hey, this is probably the best way to do things. Because like, we're multi-chain right now, but like there's an incredible amount of, engineering and just like operations type things that we have to manage, some of the edge cases, like between bridging things and like, cross if we do and the thing is like a lot of the game isn't on chain yet, like a lot of
Yeah.
it's off chain, so and we're already struggling with some of these issues.
Yeah.
Let's say for dual arena, right, we want to match participants like between chains, like we have to figure out, hey, like if you stake Ron, right, the other guy stakes ETH, right, like how does that work?
Yeah.
And then besides just even the cross chain sort of messaging, like security, like just your bridge problems and all of that, it just starts to get messy. Obviously, you tap into the liquidity of other chains, so if somebody has their ETH on base, they don't have to worry about bridging. But the thing is, like, I think a lot of like users are savvy enough where they already know how. So it's not like it's going to be a big blocker. So it depends. It depends.
Yeah.
It depends on like who you're going to target. But I think if you're targeting degens, like it probably matters less
Yeah.
what
True.
chain they're on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm personally a big fan of interoperability in crypto. So
Yeah.
is that also something like that's more on your roadmap, collabing with other projects, or like
Yeah.
integrations?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially since it's community driven, right? Like if it's something that in terms of other communities that there's some mutual synergy there, or what have you. I think once we start bringing things on chain, it's almost like open Ronin, right? Like, hey, let's start like experimenting first off chain and kind of like doing our own thing, and then once we have something that's working, we can scale it out. We'll bring more of that on chain, and with composability, like with a lot of our contracts. I think some of the Degen Wars stuff that we're planning for later this year kind of heavily relies on composability, either like DeFi wise or kind of with other parts of the ecosystem, like on-chain guilds, for example. I think that just opens up a lot of design space for contracts and other sort of on-chain activity that is really like unexplored. Mostly because a lot of Web3 games are early, right?
Yeah.
But I think as they mature, you're going to see more and more of the composability thesis, I think, playing out. It's just maybe a little too early right now.
Mm-hmm. And in general, starting a new year, what do you see ahead for Web3 gaming in 25? Like, what's the biggest developments and narratives?
I think there with Web3 gaming, there's almost like two or three different sort of ends of the or kind of specializations, right? There's maybe the big right triple A games, like the big budgets, right? Off the grid maybe is the biggest, where everybody knows how that game sort of works and how that fits into Web3. You have, I think, more the kind of degen idle game, sort of niche, let's say on Blast, this was crypto valleys. But your DeFi kingdoms, your Wolf
Yeah.
game, like have you, where maybe the development cost is actually a little lower because a lot of the gameplay is the economics, right? It's the money, right? Money games being played. So I think that is definitely exciting space. And the cool thing about that is like another very exciting new novel sort of game could pop out at any moment, right? Because you don't have to build for like 3 years to get something and experiment. So I think that's a huge nexus there. I think the third one would just be your MMOs. I think for obvious reasons, I think MMOs are very suited to sort of the Web3 real estate sort of speculation. So Lubatera, like Pixels, obviously, I think there's a lot of players in the space. So very excited to see over the next few years how the economics evolve.
I think so too, that the MMOs definitely have proven themselves to be the best like product market fit for crypto gaming right now. Like with
Yeah.
shooter games, I always feel like it's really tricky with the cheating. Like
Yes.
basically
Yes.
any bad extractor or cheater is
Yes.
going to ruin
Yes.
the
Very
crypto
hard.
economy. So if
Yeah.
somebody
I
figures that
mean, it's
out,
also difficult for MMOs. Yeah, it's kind of like a perpetual problem.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking about trends, what's your thoughts on AI agents and gaming? Is it something
Yeah.
we can maybe also expect from um, Cambria to integrate, or what's your
Yeah.
general thoughts on
Yeah.
the potential there?
So we have a few ideas that we've been incubating for actually quite a while. But yeah, they're kind of still in the early stage. I think yeah, there's a lot of potential. I think it just kind of needs both the right implementation as well as like just the right tokenomics around some of this. Because the real exciting part, I think, is like how do you apply what agents can do to the financial aspect, whether it be some sort of like money game or what have you. So yeah, I'm not gonna share too much about what we're planning, but yeah, definitely a few things, Cody.
Okay. And your thoughts on meme coins?
Yeah, I'm actually not super into meme coins, so kind of more just watching,
Yeah.
Like the way I think about meme coins, it's almost like a social casino game, right? Like you're just betting and it's on narratives and like it's social. It's almost like an MMO in that sense. It's like you're kind of yeah, there's a lot of like similar things that you notice, like in jokes, right? Like a common culture, right, inside the coin that you're building. So yeah, I think with especially making it easy for the average consumer, like with the Solana sort of the ease of use, the mass market. Um, it's definitely an interesting game. I think what will need to be seen is like, does that audience translate over to other parts of crypto, right? That are more
Yeah.
time intensive or just take more you know brain effort
I,
than just
I think it's going
crypto.
to burn a lot of new users in crypto, but
Yeah,
like going through that and like, eventually sticking, I think it's maybe gonna
yeah,
turn them into more believers and turning to more solid
sure,
fundamentals. Um,
sure.
yeah. Let's go more about the gameplay side of Cambria. What would you say
Yeah.
is the best thing about Cambria?
Best thing about Cambria, that's a good question. I think what we're trying to create in terms of the best moments are really the emergent sort of social interactions. I think with kind of the risk to earn setup, with the kind of DJ native, very high risk speculation. I think the real fun in it, like besides just earning or losing, right? Like you watch lots of amounts of money, is yeah, just the social sort of both emotions as well as like kind of yeah, just the social interactions, like either PvP, right, where you're on opposite teams, or on the same team, like hopping on a Discord call, like really like trying to figure out the game, like grind the game out. That's something that I've always loved about MMOs, is the social side. I think like with recent years, like just the change in consumer preferences and tastes and behaviors, like the social side has largely gone away. Right now we have TikTok, now we have all these new social networks. So yeah, capturing some of that magic from before, like with the stakes. I think like with the stakes, you kind of like feel like it's significant, right? It's sort of relevant to you. Like right now, like I don't really play much of any games, right? But happy to ape into random like NFTs or like lose on meme stocks or meme coins, what have you. It's just like kind of yeah, it gives it some more significance. So yeah, I think kind of creating some of those moments, and really like you can create the environment for the like those moments to happen, but it's ultimately just players interacting in some sort of environment. And that's why I think like PvP is actually very important for some of these games, because you can, especially with the incentives with around some of these games, like it's very easy to figure out like how to win. Right? So like once you solve that, I think a lot of people, once you solve a game, once you feel like, oh, I've mastered this and there's no new quests or no new mechanic I want to master or no new level up that I want to get, right? You're kind of like done with the game, right?
Yeah.
But with PvP, like with some of that side, like it's always emerging because there's some like fundamental like interesting things of like oh like what is this other guy doing, right? It's like playing League, like you're bouncing off of other players.
Mm. Yeah, you briefly brought it up, the risk to earn part. I feel like that's
Yeah,
something that's synonymous with Cambria's risk to earn. If you think about risk to earn, you think about Cambria. And
yeah,
like personally, also that's what I like most about the game, and I think about it a lot because there's actually
yeah,
it goes in many ways. It's not just the on-chain, the risking your assets part, but you actually
yeah,
also did a really good job of implementing that inside the gameplay loops with the weight
yeah,
system, with the stress system, but also with the energy system where you've limited time where you need
right,
to risk more
right.
energy going in the high level zones and so on.
Yep,
Um,
yep,
I feel like that's almost more important, the gameplay side, than obviously like the assets, which is kind
yeah,
of like the poker thing, right? You play
exactly,
with your higher
exactly.
stakes and then there's more on the line.
Yeah,
But I really
yeah,
wanted to compliment you on the gameplay side. Like that's what for me also makes the risk to earn
yeah,
very
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
intense
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, and I do think it's really relatively unexplored territory. I mean, like the full Crownlands sort of game mode that we're building towards, we're probably going to test out later this year. Is kind of this like like fully persistent like single world, right? Like just one world, fully on chain, where it's almost like guilds are battling it out for our token, right? Where similar to EVE Online, you have like castles, like you have resources that are in this persistent world that you can capture, right? Take control of. You have guilds that like own parts of the world, and you have like basically a lot of the diplomacy gameplay, right? Where you're like allying with somebody or maybe backstabbing them, right? A few days later, right? I think like once you add the kind of the crypto elements, you get some of that significance, and you also get like a lot of let's say it was like everything was on chain, right? And you could use DeFi, you could use like lending, right? You could even NFTFi, what have you. Just things you can do with like on-chain items. Let's say you had some rare sword that would in one hit the enemy's castle, right? That was like $2 million. You took out a loan on that, and it kind of flashed it. There's just a lot of potential drama there, and I think that's great marketing too, right? It's like, hey, like this is significant because
So
X
you
and
like
X,
to
X
shock
and Y.
the player base for some
Yeah, yeah.
publicities.
I think that's trying to what we're trying to engender for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like X and
Okay.
Y influencer that are like
Yeah.
duking it out.
So that
Doing
actually also leads to my next question. So where
yeah,
there's winners, there's also losers. So what's your idea to keep the losers happy, right? Like, do you think
yeah.
it's not a problem if there's always a handful of winners and like a couple of people that just get hit in the face over and over? Or
So here's this is funny because this is actually how I think about crypto, right? Because with crypto it's the same thing. Like most everyone loses, right? So but the thing with crypto is like people think like it's just like money, tons of billions of dollars like circling around in a big circle, right? Ultimately like goes nowhere. But I think what you get out of that is entertainment, right? It's like for these chronically online nerds, it's like there's always something funny, right, happening on chain because of these stakes. People being dumb, people being like kind of their base selves, right? Like greedy about money or what have you. So yeah, I mean, you get the negatives, you get the positives, but I think the net sum is entertainment. I think the same way about like poker, right? Like if I'm playing poker, I usually like to play live poker because I'm a terrible poker player, right? Like I usually lose a lot of money, but it's just like interacting, like kind of joshing around, the old guy, like playing like a nit, right? Some of those combos that just make it fun. So I think even if you're because I mean I think for these games to be sustainable, most people have to be minus EV. I think you can't have everybody win and still have a sustainable model. So if you can create enough entertainment out of that, I think it works. Like
yeah,
people are happy to pay for entertainment. They pay for entertainment every day.
yeah. It's actually interesting that you don't try to sugarcoat it because like some people, like they kind of have more the view that like it's a basically everybody can win if the pie gets bigger. But
Yeah.
I
So
feel like
here's the thing. We're so early that I think everybody can win at this moment in time.
yeah,
Like early enough, especially with the airdrops and the tokens that are floating around, like you almost like have to be dumb not to play, right?
yeah,
Even if you're losing, you're still
yeah,
winning.
true.
So
Okay. So you have different game modes. From my understanding, right, there's Dual Arena, there's Gold Rush, and Crown Lands. Is there anything else
Yeah.
that I'm missing? And what's kind of like the
Yeah.
roadmap on these? And maybe let's also talk about the modes individually.
Yeah. Yeah. So dual arena, high stakes, 1 versus 1 duels to the death. We have like a public arena, you wager ETH on the outcome. But yeah, we've been running that on blast, but basically we're trying to combine it with the gold rush seasons where it's basically in the same world. Because I think it's fun if you can kind of like rotate between the two, right?
Okay.
Very
So
different bases, but yeah.
yeah. So
Maybe
Gold
that's
Rush is Dual Arena is coming back, and it's
yeah,
going to be in the same
in the
uh,
same world.
in the
Yes.
same campaign or event as Gold Rush.
Exactly.
Ah,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
cool. And because
Yeah.
like I personally I really love the gameplay of Gold Rush, but I'm not just from observing. I'm not quite sold on Dual Arena. So I wanted you to pitch me why I should get
Yeah,
excited
yeah, yeah.
for Dual Arena. Um,
I really think it depends on like what type of player you are. Like if you find entertainment from the high risk sort of like the Dory to like because like the gameplay wise it's very simple, right? I don't think you're gonna get any super novel gameplay there.
yeah.
It's really the social side and like kind of like doing it out like the stakes, right? I think that's the part that I think people
Mhm.
like. So I think you're definitely more of a Gold Rush player.
Yeah, I think so too. I need the
I mean
decision making,
yeah
but I can see
there are people
myself spending some time in there if it, if I might as well run around
yeah
through Gold Rush,
yeah give it a
and
try. Give it a try. Yeah.
yeah, I can see it. Maybe you can add some incentives for I don't know for the
Sure,
rewards.
sure.
But yeah, and then coming to Crownlands. So Crownlands is gonna be the main game. Does that mean at some point Gold Rush will be sunset or any plans on
Yeah,
that yet?
yeah. So the main game, we are also fourth project, working on like the full MMO, right? So this is going to be the Eternal World, right? It's going to be we have a pretty big scope there, right? In terms of some of the things that we're planning, but that's going to be the one that's not season based, that doesn't reset, right? That basically every Gold Rush season, it kind of like rolls your character into that main world. If you ever played Path of Exile, they have a very sort of similar model. I think that's ultimately we're also thinking about like 3D potentially for that. There's a lot of sort of
Oh,
potential things we could do there.
yeah. And in terms of workload, is that something where your current team is big enough, or is it like are you gonna have to scale to?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's never big enough, right? Like
Yeah.
always a ton of projects to do. But yeah, I mean, I think over this year especially, I do foresee a lot of growth. So yeah, hopefully can bring on
Mhm.
more talented team members.
Can you give some alpha on the next Gold Rush season, or you already mentioned Crownlands might come end of this year, or
Yeah. I think later this year. Um, yeah, I mean, with this next season of Gold Rush, I don't think there's anything majorly revolutionary, like new in terms of like it completely changes the game. It's mostly just iteration on what was suboptimal in the last season. So better economic model, like kind of dealing with some of the issues like guild versus solo player, or whale versus your average player. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that based on the data that we collected from last season that can be refined. Obviously, a lot of new content. We have a whole part of the map. We have new dungeons. Like we have an agility arena as well, like in the wilderness, a new part of the wilderness as well towards the south. Yeah, so a lot of kind of continuation of what made season one fun.
okay, great. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next Gold Rush.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
And in terms of length, how long is it? I heard it's gonna be slightly longer. Do you
Yeah,
have any definitive
yeah.
ideas on?
We're trying to hit I think 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh wow,
Definitely
that's pretty long.
Yeah,
but
much longer season. Because really the thing with season one, even though it's great to have like kind of a short, condensed sort of event based model, is that yeah, I mean like a lot of the growth levers that we have, like YouTube content, like other things, like it just takes time to build, right? And then if you kind of push that all out, and then like people come around and they're like, hey, I want to check out the game, and then it's like, oh, we're down for the next season, right?
yeah.
It's just a little tricky to build some of that growth, but
Yeah. Just my thoughts on that. I think there's definitely some pros of having more time and
yeah,
it's not so rushed. But at the same
yeah,
time, it's gonna make it harder for people to join later on, depending
yes,
on.
yes,
So like
and that
I yeah.
yeah, we're actually specifically designing some mechanisms for kind of joining mid-season. The thing with season one is that there was a lot of accumulated advantage, right? Basically, if you leveled
Yeah.
up the fastest, the earliest, right, you got the best gear, like you had an advantage, right? So we're trying to smooth basically some of that out, where it's kind of more continuous sort of gameplay. I don't know. There's pros and cons to both approach. I think for this time around, we're trying some of the more continuous gameplay,
Okay.
just to experiment with what works.
Looks like I'm gonna have some busy crypto gaming weeks and months ahead of me.
Yeah. That was actually the other element of like, hey, we don't want to like lock people in as well, like just force them to grind right for a whole month. So we have some options to like, hey, if you need to leave in the middle of the season, right, you're still kind of set. Because I think there's a very very uh difficult balance sometimes in terms of people that are willing to grind, right? How much do you reward them for that extra effort, versus people that are either willing to spend or kind of just don't have a ton of time
Yeah.
to play.
Yeah, I was actually impressed. Like you have a very complex reward distribution system for like
Maybe too.
yeah, like I was like
Yeah.
we were like theory crafting and reading through the docs and I think it's
Yeah.
it's very important that the rewards go in the right hands, right? What's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, I think for this next season, we're definitely trying to simplify. I think last season it was a little too much. So yeah, I think but I really liked some of the elements. I think the gold, the amount of gold that you had was good. The gold leaderboard. I think the skilling leaderboards as well. Like, it just highlights aspects of the game that if you were purely royal favor farming, like it just kind of like flattens the gameplay a bit. If that's the only thing that sort of earns rewards, but yeah, we'll see. I think we have a few new ideas, but really trying to make sure that you can kind of play Cambria the way you want, right? And still participate in the rewards.
Yeah. One gameplay question I had is about the anti-zerg mechanics. So like where you spawn the what are they called?
The
The
Cyclops.
Cyclops and the other guys, yeah.
Yeah.
That actually works really well because one thing I
Yeah.
noticed in MMOs is like, especially when there's crypto, like you just have like big guilds dominating, but it's so
Yes.
cool to see that like you don't want to have like 20 people of a guild running around in the tier 4 zone
Yeah.
because they're all wasting their energy and it's like it's not really effective. So
Yeah. And we might even do more than what we currently do, because I think late game the Cyclops almost are like too easy,
yeah,
right? They don't scale with the group. So I think we still saw a lot of zerging last time. So it is a balance though, because you do want a little bit of
of
advantage for
course.
at least like teaming up, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe not a huge guild rolling out in groups of 20, but like maybe you and a friend, or like the other two people in your group chat, right?
Yeah. What I also like about Cambria is kind of the theme around these nobles and royals. Where does that come from? Are you like the also
I
the
love
creative
I
director
love
for
how
that
you're
or?
noticing. Yeah. So yeah, that's just like personally, like I've always been super into medieval, like especially European history.
Yeah.
Grew up, kind of reading books for entertainment, and like I don't know if you ever read like G.A. Henty or like a lot of these kind of older Victorian English authors, but yeah, a lot of history involved there.
Yeah.
I personally like think like even like just the European like colonization of Americas, like a lot of the explorers, like a lot of good material to pull from there that
Yeah.
Yeah, it sets you in the mood and kind of
Yeah, it's
just
I fully love the like how fully immersed and role playing, like and
uh,
that's coming from you as well, the direction on there.
yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
cool. About the guild system, can you, maybe give some alpha or any future plans on
Yeah,
kind of the what direction that is going?
yeah. Yeah, I think in season one, the model that we had, I think worked okay. Obviously there's more tooling, right? Just managing a guild wise that we would like to see. But the tricky thing is like with the guild gameplay, like it's almost like you need a separate leaderboard. So like, obviously a guild leaderboard that's separately rewarded was something that, was definitely an idea that, we're probably gonna do like some sort of guild leaderboard. But we also have the strongholds, right? That we didn't fully utilize for season one. Still, yeah, I think playing around with a few ideas there on how we could use them. The trickiest thing is just like how to like not unbalance it versus the solo players, because solo players never gonna have a chance to knock down one of these strongholds, right?
Yeah.
So having that as well as like having meaningful guild competition where they're actually competing with each other to be at the top of the leaderboard. I think those are also some of the things we're trying to do.
Yeah. So let's jump to the uh, crypto parts and also the
Yeah.
NFTs. So you're expanding your portfolio of different um, NFTs that are out there. Started with the founders NFTs.
Yes.
In very brief way, what's the main purpose of the founders NFT?
Yeah. Yeah, the founders really is like the core of the community, right? It's like if you were to create a network, right? Like let's say Ethereum, right? The validators, right? Who are the core people that, we can rely on? Like they've been there from the start, like they're the biggest red pill, Cambria fans ever. Right? I think that is what we're trying to do. So, our goal with that is to have the widest base of holders possible, right? The most unique holders that are like have been involved in Cambria, like or are currently involved. And they're kind of the ones almost driving the growth of the network.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously with that we want to reward the founders like in line like with the growth of the network. So any mints we do, any airdrops, right? Always like sort of first dibs there. The cores, yeah, I mean like that was kind of an experiment that we did that we're kind of on like yeah basically experimenting with right now.
Yeah. Were the
Yeah,
cores actually kind of a result of going to Ronin? Because I think for Ronin, volume is important as well, and I think definitely
yeah,
like a function of the course is to have high volume in trading.
yes,
Is that something that
yes.
basically came as a result, or
Yeah, I'd say that was one of the factors. I think for cores, as the second collection, right, it's just more accessible price point. Like, there's more 10K, right, versus 1500 for the founders. Yeah, it's just easier to kind of enter the ecosystem there. So yeah, I think that's definitely one element.
yeah?
But yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. Were you gonna ask?
No, just on the NFTs. Also, um, kind of like all the NFTs went up really high in price. Did you purposefully
Yeah.
underprice them? Is it something that, or did you, like you could have made
Yeah.
more money, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think generally with mints, we like to I think price them at something reasonable because really it's like a community asset, right? A lot of the value in the future is going to be driven by the community and like the growth of networks. So it's like hey, if we can kind of bring people in, and we do spend a lot of time on the distribution as well of how those mints get allocated. So it's really us kind of like making sure they kind of end up in the right hands. Is the other aspect.
Yeah, yeah. I briefly mentioned this earlier, but I feel like you do a really good job with like the rewards
Yeah.
distribution. Um, and yeah, I think it's also a very positive signal for a game. When the NFTs actually appreciate a lot after the mint, right? And you guys definitely
Yeah.
stand out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about future NFTs, right? We have the land, companions, skins, pets. Actually, one
Yes.
thing, there's pet tickets, right? But there's also the companions now from the course how do these work together? Is it the same thing? Or
Yeah. So pet tickets basically converted to allocation into the core spend.
okay,
So that pet tickets are done. So next season we might have land tickets as well for season two, just for the future lands collection. But besides that, yeah, the companions and the skins, like the cosmetics, are, I'd say, sub collections of the cores as a factory NFT. Because yeah, you stake the cores, you earn the shards, and then it's both companion shards as well as the skin shards that you can spend on both, right? On the companion side, you're minting new companions that are traded into that collection. And then on the skin side, you're kind of choosing which skin collections that you want to spend shards on. Like some of them are limited, some of them have, limited capped supply with like shard prices based on a bonding curve to the remaining supply. There's, yeah, just a lot of different, some are also like core tier gated. So you have to have above tier two core, right, to buy or what have you. So yeah, I think there's a lot, and the fun part about that is like the more that the game grows, right, the more demand obviously for the companions, which have perks, right, that give you convenience, utility in the game, like auto loot collection, bird's eye view, what have you. So that's demand on the skin side, and then on the cosmetic side, everybody loves the flex, right? So
yeah,
we're trying to create like a big market, similar to CS:GO, very similar to CS:GO
yeah.
sort of skin market.
But you kind of brought to my attention the term factory NFTs. Is it something that you saw
Yeah.
other products doing, or like
Yeah,
well,
I can't remember. There's definitely been a collection, or people have talked about factory NFTs before. I think that has been a thing, and I think you could like consider, the original Axes, right? Factories in some sense.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it's, but it's always kind of been in threads. I can't think of a collection right now that kind of has implemented this
yeah.
for gaming specifically.
But you're the first one to nail it. But yeah, like I
We're
feel
trying.
like that's one thing, like you guys are really innovative, with the risk to earn part, but not also factory NFTs. I really like the whole approach.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, but uh, at the same time, you're giving up on potential revenue, right? Like instead of selling
Sure.
the skins and whatever
Sure.
yourselves, and from
Sure.
my insights that I have and other talks, on-chain revenues are not so big.
Yeah.
Um, what's your revenue model, and like,
Yeah.
are you confident that like you're also gonna
Yeah.
uh, be able to bring in the revenues for the company?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I think ultimately, like with once we, potentially in the future, right, launch a token network. I think, yeah, I mean it's basically how you set up the tokenomics there, right? The value should accrue to the token, and you can kind of drive some of the on-chain levers, right? The fee switch, I think people call it for a lot of these contracts. Where, yeah, I mean, like value is basically like there's a variety of ways that you can do that. But yeah, I'd say like the interesting thing about Canva is that I think a lot of the gaming experiences that we do are quite high volume. So basically a lot of ETH kind of sloshing through the contracts, kind of both in game and outside the game. So as a function of that, right? If you have a lot of volume, you can take fees off of that volume, and then that's basically your business model there. What I like about volume based business models is that it's not always, but it's you know a large percent of the time, it yeah, it's good incentive alignment, right, with between the person that's running the product and then the users, because it's almost like you're incentivized to grow the product, right? Have more volume, have more activity. Volume usually translates to some sort of like positive activity, right? um Usually, again, sometimes there may be exceptions, but yeah, versus let's say like traditional games, like you have the studio, right, that's selling microtransactions that they're trying to basically squeeze as much as possible, right, from their players. Whereas but the thing is, like, they're also just selling a product that has no financial aspect at all, right? you know so maybe that's the perfect model for them. I think risk to earn a lot of the things that we're doing. Like if it does take off, right? It's part of the appeal is that there is, you know, a lot of ETH that's flowing through that. So yeah, it's just kind of like a natural sort of business model for what we're trying to build.
Okay. And one final thing about the NFTs. So lands, I feel like there's not much info out on lands, or maybe I'm missing that. But
Yeah.
I really like the idea of lands. You know, like that's something I always find so cool, being like a digital
Yeah.
real estate owner,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like having my own piece of land in a game. How can you get me even more excited and bullish on lands? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's your
Yeah,
plans
I
for
think
lands?
lands is gonna be interesting. We're kind of going with the islands based approach. I think like player owned housing in RuneScape is a big reference as well, where you kind of just like were able to create your own thing. Like in RuneScape, like you could customize your player owned housing. You could like put in your own furniture in there. You could have like workbenches, right? I think Albion Islands also did this really well, where yeah, essentially you just have your own island, right? You can grow crops, like you have your own farm, what have you, but the tricky thing I think with the crypto elements is like how do you manage scarcity in terms of the land with the growth of the game, right? Because
Yeah,
at some point, how much land, right? For how many people are they? Is it they're renting or what have you? I think the biggest thing we're trying to maximize there is just like not only the feeling of hey, like I'm owning something and this is mine and like it's kind of valuable, like kind of balancing that with kind of making that experience something that's accessible to as many people as possible. I think those two things, sometimes are fundamentally at odds. So it's a little tricky to manage that. But um, the cool thing, yeah, I think the cool thing about Badlands though, it's like it's your part of the game, right? It's like you have your little castle, right, that you own, and once we have the pets in there, like your pets are kind of on the island, right, like doing various things or just hanging out, like that's your collection. But yeah, it kind of like ties a lot of that social sort of
yeah.
emotional attachment together.
So lands is gonna be more on the social side, or is there also gonna be a production
Yeah,
element to that?
yeah. I think if there's any production element, it has to be tied into a specific game mode. Let's say like Crownlands or like Gold Rush or what have you. I think it makes more sense for something like Crownlands where it's like, maybe you have the islands that are producing the raw materials that get imported into this like new world, right? Let's say the Americas that people are just like duking it out over, right? They're like, constant conflict or whatever. So they're supplying the war effort, right? If in a way, I think there's ways to basically tie in the lands into, and then so in that framing, the lands is kind of like the above like each individual game mode. It's kind of like across all the game modes, but there's certain parts of it that kind of integrate to various things where there's still demand or there's still economic gameplay with kind of managing the lands and some of the outputs. Yeah, the exact details, still need to be
Okay,
worked
yeah.
out.
But I didn't fully get to the at first. So lands are gonna be like a separate instance, or it's gonna be part of the open world.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a separate instance where
Okay.
there's some sort of portal or there's some sort of
Yeah. And you
all of
will
that.
also be able to have multiple lands. Have you shared anything about the supply of total lands yet?
Not yet, not
Okay.
yet. Yeah,
Yeah, I would actually be interested if there was some kind of, because like you obviously brought up the point that I also feel in many games, right? The scaling of lands, there's either too many or too little.
yeah,
What if there was like a land system with a burn mechanic integrated, so that kind of
yeah.
generates new lands based on player demand,
Sure.
and like if lands are not as useful, people can burn it and use it for something else.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like, just letting the market take care of it. The other idea we've had was like kind of having like a hub and spoke sort of model where it's like the land closest to like let's say the main world, right, is the most valuable and then the most productive and is the easiest to ship, right? You pay
Yeah,
the least shipping costs. And then you kind of like the further out you go, right, you go into the boonies and like, so people can start at the periphery and kind of like gradually like, upgrade their way up. I think that's another model that could potentially work.
yeah. But I assume also with lands, like your um, so your goal would be to have lots of unique owners, right? So
Yeah,
so you have
yeah,
any ideas on how to achieve that, or is it like not?
yeah, yeah. I think it could just be a two type of player owned land model where you have one that's more kind of the resource generating and that's limited in supply, and then you have one that's more accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
Almost like the cores and the companions, right? Companions, uncapped supply, cores, 10K, right? Some sort of dynamic there.
Yeah. Okay. And speaking about the token, do you have a ticker already? Like, is there any name for the token out yet, or
Not yet, not
not
yet.
yet?
Yep.
And you just not
TBD.
shared, or you don't know it yet?
We do have one. We do have
Okay,
one.
cool.
I think people like
Okay, and when TGE?
it. Soon.
Oh, really?
Soon.
Soonbria?
With Soonbria.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty excited. Any other milestones or goals for the future that like are in your mind? Like that's kind of like your North Star where you wanna get soon.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest goals this year is to really break into the Web 2 player audience. I think like especially with a RuneScape sort of angle, like I think there's a lot of people on the periphery that, have heard of crypto, maybe own some ETH on Coinbase, right? But are not quite, degens yet that we could potentially convert. I think, yeah, I mean like with the game, like right now, I don't know if it's in a state right now where, we could, really market it on the Web 2 side, but I do think there's a very untapped audience there that I mean, really, if you look at it, like no Web3 game has really like been culturally relevant or has really taken off in Web 2, and I don't think that's like something that is just like crypto gaming is always going to be niche, right? I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of broad based appeal to a lot of these games that it could take off. It's just like waiting for the right game.
yeah. And what plans for scaling do you have? Is it
Yeah,
marketing related? Do you just rely on like the Ronin community, maybe
yeah.
also to
I
bring
think
in the
it's a
masses?
combination of a lot of things, but I think content and kind of streamers, influencers, yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a big part.
Yeah, one thing that was pretty cool in another game I played, Raven Quest, they actually
Yeah.
did Twitch drops, and that led to like lots of people streaming, but also watching that like really good numbers for a
Yeah.
Web3 game. I think like the best I've probably seen. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's a little bit incentivized, but it's still good to
Sure. Sure.
get the attention. Then I also wanted to know the trinkets. So trinkets are basically points for the airdrop allocation, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and basically in any of the upcoming modes and seasons, like we will be able to earn trinkets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
For
cool.
season 2, we'll have trinkets as well.
Yeah. And then I had one specific question from 357. Um, he wanted to get some leaks on the PvP changes.
Leaks in the PvP. Besides, more content, right? More weapons, more special attacks. I think we're just trying to add some more depth to it. I mean, obviously, with the RuneScape inspiration, we get a lot there with the combat triangle, right? Melee is bad to magic, but good against range, stuff like that. So yeah, we're definitely trying to lean into it. Potentially playing around with like more 1 versus 1 PvP where it's like not always, everybody can attack, just pile on one person. But yeah, there's ways to exploit that as well. Like, we're trying to figure out some solutions to that. But yeah, that's another point of focus because nobody likes getting destroyed by some of these guilds out there. It was quite funny. Like, I don't know if you were there when the VA gang was they're outside of New Borders, I think, and just roaming around, just blowing people up. It was funny to watch, but if you're that
Which gang?
poor soul. The I can't I'm blanking on the exact name.
Oh, okay.
Vietnam. They're the guild is from Vietnam. forget the exact name.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guild warfare last season was
Ah,
quite
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I had the fortune of having like a pretty strong guild as well, and so I was
Yeah.
somewhat protected, but I also had some annoying deaths. Like 2 or 3 times, I
Yeah.
really slammed my table, and I was ready to quit. But then my good friend Cryer actually, calmed me down and gave me emotional support.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
That's- Especially when you only have like one really good set and you die and you lose
Yes.
it, and you're like, shit, I need to
Yes.
start
Yes.
all over. I was so on the grind, and now I need to. That's- yeah.
That's pretty bad.
But yeah. All right. Final question, also from the community. So there's a train coming, and you can only save one person. Crown Queenie, Cyril, and Geo. Who are you? Who are you saving?
Crown Queenie, Cyril, and Geo, right?
Yeah.
The mods. And I can only save one. Wow. That's too hard, man. I think it's gotta be Geo, man. Geo has yeah, he's been with us for quite a bit. I don't know. It's just like
Yeah.
Geo's the guy.
Yeah,
Geo's
just
the
from
guy.
my interactions, like you guys have great people on your team. Also, I
Yeah.
think you're a great guy for this job. Definitely
Yeah.
like one of the more unique projects, but I think that's also why you're
Thank you.
successful. And yeah, Ben, thank you so much for sharing your time
Yeah,
with
thanks
me.
for
It
having
was
me
really
on.
cool. I hope you also
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Any
All
final
right.
words for the community? Any leaks, or did I already squeeze
Yeah,
enough out?
about to season 2. It's gonna be a blast.
All right, thank you, Ben.